Leaders of almost every country in the world gather in New York for the United Nations General Assembly this week. And there's probably almost nothing Donald Trump cares about less. The joke around Turtle Bay, where the United Nations sits in the east side of Manhattan, is that it ought to be renamed Siberia on the East River, or Elba after the island where Napoleon was exiled. And that's because Trump's former national security advisor, Mike Waltz, has been reassigned there after essentially falling out of favor with the White House for a bunch of different reasons. But the upshot of them was that he kind of wasn't MAGA enough. He's an old fashioned, international facing Republican in an administration whose ideology, led in a way by J.D. Vance, the vice president, is about America first, about disengaging from global institutions, about turning every relationship into a deal that America gets something out of, which is essentially the opposite of the ethos of the United Nations. And so there's this real question of what does this administration think the United Nations is for? When I talk to people in the administration at the UN this week, they really said two different things. One is that to the degree that which Trump sees the UN as interesting, it's really the UN as the permanent five members of the Security Council: the U.S., Great Britain, France, Russia, China. As far as he's concerned, the UN is a five-member institution with a bunch of other countries floating around. But in that format, in a way, that's the kind of environment in which it's easier to do bilateral business. It's easier to make a deal with France than it is to deal with the European Union. Then there is also just the reality that Trump has been going around smashing up these 20th century institutions, whether it is big important ones like USAID or obscure ones like the African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which is seemingly getting edged out in a new public health initiative. And Waltz, is an ambitious guy. Morgan Ortagus, a senior administration official, is going there. Maybe they will find some Trump agenda to really create real change, smash up the UN, try to create something new. Although it's hard to imagine that Trump is paying attention. And then the question is, without the U.S. or with the increasingly disengaged U.S., what's left of the United Nations? You have these huge humanitarian programs, which are always desperate for money. And then you have a bunch of lower profile but important institutions that covering maritime law, telecommunications. And the country most interested in those right now is China, that's been very focused on trying to insert itself to where the U.S. has backed off. And I think to say to countries that are not the five big ones, the five with the vetoes on the Security Council, that China is now the one trying to create a set of rules that create a level playing field for small countries as well as big ones, as the U.S. walks away from that vision. Tap the link in our bio to read more.